Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC guy. Last week I talked about 6 ways that you can improve your DCC performance. One of those ways was to buy quality decoders, and particularly sound decoders. So I wanted to follow up this week in this video by giving you an overview of 10 different brands of sound decoders and my personal impressions of them. So let's go ahead and get started with a look at these 10 different brands of DCC sound decoders. Now, as I said in the opening, today I want to talk about 10 different brands of DCC sound decoders. And really what I'm going to be talking about are my personal impressions of these. In some cases, in many cases, that is based on experience actually working with the decoders in installations in locomotives. But in a few cases, it's simply my impressions based on what I have heard from you, what I have picked up on various forums, things of that nature. And therefore, it is just my impressions based on information that I have been able to gather about the quality and reliability of these various brands. So, for those of you who have had personal experience working with some of these that I have not, please share those experiences with others here in the comments so that we can all benefit from our collective knowledge. I'm going to basically divide these up into 3 broad categories: the bottom, the middle, and the top. And the bottom are ones that I do not have a good impression of. The middle are just what you might think. They're middling. And then the top are the 3 or 4 that I feel are high quality decoders that I personally would spend my money to purchase. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, I want to start with a brand called QSI. Now, QSI was a very popular and productive company back 10, 15 years ago. And a lot of manufacturers, down around the turn of the century, were installing QSI decoders in their ready-to-run locomotives. However, for some reason, the company changed hands at some point, and it seems to have fallen on bad times. I cannot find any products for sale any longer. About a year or so ago, I went to their website, and it did seem that they were still producing or wanted to produce decoders, but I couldn't find anybody then selling them. This week, in preparation for this video, I went back to that website, and unfortunately it has been hacked, and it came up with a phishing scheme. There was flashing all over my screen on my computer, and I basically had to crash the computer in order to get out. So do not go to the QSI website. As far as I can tell, they're effectively out of business. Now, if you know otherwise than that, please share with us your experience. At any rate, this is a QSI sound decoder that a viewer sent me, along with the programmer, the software for it, the information, everything. If there's any of you out there that love QSI decoders and know what to do with this stuff, let me know. I will gladly send you this for the price of shipping. That's all I ask. Other than that, I can't really recommend QSI decoders to you. Okay, the next brand I want to talk about is MTH, Mike's Train House. Now, several years ago, Mike decided to retire, and he put the company up for sale, and it was sold off in bits. It seems like initially somebody bought the O-scale operation, and then at the last minute, somebody stepped in and bought the HO. However, I cannot find any MTH locomotives for sale any longer. I don't know what happened to them. I don't know if the plans to produce them or continue producing these fell through or what. But I looked on the internet, did a number of searches, could not find any HO locomotives. This is one that was sent to me for a review. I took a look at the DCC operations at the time. I wasn't overly impressed. They basically have their own DCS system, and then DCC is added on top of that. So anytime you have something like that going on, it's not exactly the best set of circumstances, and I did not at that time find that I liked the DCC part of the experience. So some of you that use DCS from MTH might like it a lot. I guess one of these days I'll put this on eBay and pass it on to somebody who might have it as part of their fleet. Now, MRC has been in the game now, for maybe 20 years possibly. I can't remember exactly when they got into producing decoders and DCC equipment. They are fairly well known in the US. They produce a good solid brand of DCC system. Their decoders, unfortunately, I picked up, or I was sent by MRC, 2 of them, a diesel and a steam decoder. I don't remember when this was, probably in the early 2000s. To be honest with you, I was not impressed, and they're both still in the boxes. So can't say too much about them. I checked on the MRC website. They only listed about 4 sound decoders available, and a couple of those were drop-ins for specific locomotives. So I cannot share with you any more information about the current status of MRC production. And I couldn't find anything available on the internet at various dealers. I don't have any knowledge at all about the UK versions of any decoders that they might have. So if you guys in the UK have had any experience with MRC sound decoders or decoders for UK locomotives, please let us know about that. Now, the next brand of sound decoders that I want to talk about are made by a company called Hornby for the UK market. And they make 2 different brands of sound decoders. They have their TTS system, which is a 2-channel system. And that means you can play 2 sounds at the same time, and that's it. In their literature, it suggests that the chuff works all the time with steam locomotives, and then you can play various other, what they call their spot sounds or background sounds. If you play more than 1 at a time, you only get the chuff plus 1. So, take a look at that. That's something to be considered. When you've only got 2 channels of sound output, it might be a limitation for you. There are also some other limitations, so I think you should take a look at their literature. So it is a mid-range price decoder system, and it sounds pretty good on some of the reviews that I have seen online. So take a look at, say, Sam's Trains. Sam has done quite a number of reviews of TTS-equipped locomotives. So take a look at those, and that'll give you a pretty good idea of the sounds and how good they are. Now, the new HM7000 system that Hornby recently came out with, which is a Bluetooth wireless system, seems to be quite interesting. However, one of the reviews that I saw on YouTube was that the decoders themselves are too big to fit in most locomotives, and the one that individual reviewed burned out after 1 day. So I think that pretty much says it all. So you might want to take a look at some of those reviews of the TTS sound decoders as well as the HM7000, and take a look real close to find out whether or not other people are experiencing the same problems that this reviewer had with them not fitting in most locomotives and with them burning out after 1 day. Next, let's talk about Digitrax sound decoders. Now, Digitrax has been in DCC in the US since the beginning. And I started working with Digitrax back around 1994. They were the first DCC product I actually reviewed, and I've been using Digitrax ever since. So I've got almost 30 years experience working with Digitrax products. And their decoders are very good. The mobile decoders are very reliable and work very well. However, the sound decoders, the mobile portion, the drive portion is very similar to the mobile only. They work great. Sound is another issue. Unfortunately, the quality of the sound packages in general is not all that great. I've done a number of installations with these sound decoders. I've only had one that I was satisfied with. Most of them, they're either too low, the volume is just too low, even at the top setting for the volume, or it's just not very good. I have an RS1 that is part of the original Digitrax sound package that is very good, and I like it a lot. The rest of them I have not had very good experiences with. So I can't highly recommend these unless you find one that you like. And if you like it, that's great. You can test it on the Digitrax system and see if you like it, and you can go with that. But be aware that I have a large number of these. They've been in the bags for a long time because I just have not had a good enough feeling about using them to actually go ahead and install these in locomotives. Now, several years ago, I did an installation article for Model Railroader using this GE 44-ton locomotive, and I installed a Zimo decoder in it. Now, my experience at that time was that Zimo is a very, very good brand of decoder, and I found it, though, to be very clunky to work with for the sound installation and programming, because it required that you send in the serial number for the decoder to Zimo, and then they would send you a sound package that had that serial number embedded in it so that it could only be installed in that specific decoder. And then I had to borrow an interface from a dealer in order to upload the sound package to the decoder. It was not easy. It was one of these things where it was like a little thumb wheel or a little thumb drive type operation that it uploaded through. I found it to be very clunky. Once I got everything installed, I was able to program it using Decoder Pro without any issues. So it runs fine. The problem, though, that I see, in addition to the clunky interface, and it might have changed since I did this about 4 years ago. Now, the other issue that I had with it was they had very, very few sound projects for US prototypes. Now, I did manage to find one sound project on their website that had a diesel prime mover sound like the one that's used in this locomotive. So I did use that. Unfortunately, the horn just was not anywhere near the 3-chime that was used here, the Nathan M3. So it sounds like maybe the horn on this one has a blown diaphragm or something like that, needs to go back to the shop for retuning or something. So I would really like at some point to replace this Zimo decoder, or at least replace the sound package. Unfortunately, Zimo does not have a big presence here in the US. It's very, very popular in Europe and the UK, and I suspect over there most of you are probably buying the decoder with the sound package already installed in it and tweaked for your particular locomotive, so you're not going to have any issues like I did with this installation. So be aware about the issues, though, with sound packages if you buy one to install your own sounds in yourself. Hit that little red subscribe button, and when the little bell comes up, click on it and click All. Next in the lineup is BLI. Now, BLI has been around for a number of years now. Early on, they were using other people's decoders in their locomotives. I think they actually started out using QSI, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Then they went through a number of different series of their own decoders. Early on, those decoders were known to be very unreliable, and you just had to plan on replacing them after a couple of years. In my experience, the most recent, and I'm talking about the last 6 or 7 years, series of decoders have been very reliable, and I run them all the time here on the layout. This nice little diesel here has a BLI decoder in it, and I have no problems at all with that. I have several steam locomotives, all of which have their original BLI sound decoders in them, and I like them a lot. They are tuned for that locomotive, produce very good sound in general. The only limitation, I think, is that they typically only have about 3 different whistles available with them. So there is some variability in that respect. But the reliability issue seems to have gone away. So I wouldn't hesitate to recommend purchasing the BLI locomotives with their sound decoders in them. At one time, BLI produced a lot of their locomotives without a decoder in them. And I purchased, I think, 2 of my J-Class 484s were purchased without decoders. I have one that has a decoder, as well as some others here on the layout. And, you know, the ones that I did not buy sound decoders with, I put in a different brand that I'll talk about in just a minute. So, BLI, it's a pretty good brand. The only thing to remember is they don't produce decoders for individual sale. They only come in their locomotives. So you can't buy a BLI decoder, to my knowledge, except in a locomotive that they have produced. So if you have a J-Class locomotive and you'd like the sounds to match it, You might be able to find one on eBay or something like that, but be careful. Make sure that you get a guarantee that it actually works and not something that has died and somebody has pulled out to sell on eBay. Next in the lineup is LokSound by ESU. Now, I started working with LokSound decoders when they first were being imported into the US. And initially, I worked with a J-Class, NW J-Class 484 decoder. It seemed to be pretty good. But one of the things about LokSound and ESU is they do things their own special way. And you just have to be ready to get used to the way that they do some of their programming internally. They are a very reliable decoder. I've never had any problems at all with their decoders. And they come in a variety of different shapes and sizes and different capabilities. So they offer you a great variety of installation capabilities in diesel and steam locomotives. The great thing about them is in the US, you have a wide range of diesel sound packages available that you can download for free from their website, and then using their Lok programmer, which I've shown you how to use here in videos on the channel, you can then upload that sound package to the decoder and do programming for that. And like I said, their programming can be a little quirky, a little different from what most other decoders use. So you have to just get used to the differences in the way that they do their sounds. Other than that, they're pretty straightforward. And once you get the sound package uploaded, and you can have the dealer do that for you, it's fairly straightforward and easy to do the rest of the programming through Decoder Pro. So if you're used to using Decoder Pro, that's probably the best way to go about doing it. LokSound decoders have become quite popular in the US. They seem to be quite popular in Europe and in the UK. And in the UK, just about all of these are available with the sound packages already installed on them and tweaked for the particular locomotive that you purchase it for. So they are a great option for the UK, for Europe, and for the US, particularly for diesels. They don't have a large number of US steam locomotive sound projects, unfortunately. But if you're into diesels, they really just excel in those. So right now, these LokSound decoders are being installed by the manufacturers in Athearn locomotives, Atlas locomotives, Rapido locomotives, and several others. But there are a number of these available out there to you. So if you get a new sound decoder equipped locomotive, it probably is going to have a LokSound decoder in it. I love these. I use them a lot, particularly on my diesel locomotives, because they are very, very good for that. Okay, next up in the lineup is TCS Wow Sound decoders. I got into TCS many years ago. They've been producing mobile-only decoders and the like for a number of years, ever since the late 1990s, I believe. So they have a very long record of producing decoders, and they're very reliable, very good decoders. So you don't have to worry about that. They have a very long history of operation here in the US. Sound decoders came on about 2013, 2014, and like LokSound, they have some of their own little quirks about the way they do things. They have a utility on their website for calculating some of the CV values. Also, if you just use Decoder Pro, it will do all of that work for you. So it makes it much, much easier to work with their decoders, just like LokSound. They have been growing in popularity amongst users here in the US. They have a wide range of both steam and diesel sound projects available. They have the largest collections of bells and whistles that I've ever seen, so it makes it very easy to match the sounds to the prototype that you particularly have on your locomotive, and they just are a very good all-around sound decoder. I use these particularly on my steam locomotives. If I get a locomotive and I don't particularly like the sound package that it comes with, I'll put one of these in it and it sounds great. So they are great for the steam. That's particularly good. They have this new feature in their new decoders called Chuffinity, and I haven't had a chance to even get this one out of the package, and we'll be taking a look at this in a future video. But basically, as I understand it, it kind of rotates different chuff sounds into the mix so that it doesn't sound the same all the time. So you get a lot more variability like you do on the railroad when you have a locomotive that's really pulling a load of cars over different terrain types. So, you know, it's something that we'll be taking a look at. Like I said, I really like these. I love the Alco sound that they have. I use these in all of my RS units because they sound so great. And I use these in all of my steam locomotives. Right now, they are being used by Bachmann in some of the Bachmann ready-to-run locomotives that come with sound. Okay, finally, number 10. Now, SoundTraxx is the grandfather of sound for DCC, really. I mean, when it comes down to it. I was first introduced to SoundTraxx back before they even started producing sound decoders for sale. I happened to be in Denver for a meeting one time, and I arranged to go up and visit the SoundTraxx offices in a suburb north of Denver, and they showed me a brand new decoder that they were prototyping, and it was their first sound decoder. And it sounded great then, and they sound great now. And one of the great things about this company is they've been producing sound decoders, you know, ever since the late 1990s. So you've got a very good reputation here of reliability and dedication to the product line itself, because they do have quite a range of different decoder sizes and types and different capacities. They have both the Economy line and the Tsunami 2 line, with lots of different diesel and steam locomotive sounds. They have excellent choices in whistles and horns and bells, and they just produce a wide variety of chuffs and diesel prime mover sounds. So whatever you need, you're going to be able to find it. You can go to their website and you can listen to the sound packages online, hear what they sound like. They also have a very good reference on there for what types of horns were used by different railroads. So if you're not sure which horn you need, go ahead, take a look at their website and scroll through the daggone selections there. And they have one page that has just lots of information on the different prime movers and also on the different horns available in their decoders. So they offer, you know, a very good selection. Prices range anywhere for something in the $70 range, roughly, for the economies, to over $100 for the Tsunami 2. And that's one thing I didn't point out earlier, is that the further up the list I've come, the more expensive the decoders are. So for something like the SoundTraxx decoders, LokSound, and the TCS decoders, you're looking at something right at or over $100 US for those particular decoders. Now these guys here, the economies, I use the UK Steam version in all of my UK Steam locomotives, and I have quite a collection of them. And I can get these here in the US for around $70, and that includes shipping in most cases. They do have some economy decoders for US locomotives, so you might want to look into that too, and they're a good option. They just don't have the number of different sounds that are available on a Tsunami 2. And the same goes for the UK. It's generally, there are just fewer sounds available on the Economy than on the Tsunamis. Right now, SoundTraxx is still being used by Athearn, Bachmann, and Walthers. Walthers also, I believe, uses the LokSound decoders in some of their locomotives. So you have to kind of look around and see what they are producing at any given time. In some cases, you have a choice. I think Athearn for a while was offering either a SoundTraxx Tsunami decoder or a LokSound decoder in some of their locomotives. So you have to look into that and see what's available at the time when you make your purchase, if you have a preference. Other than that, these are my favorite go-to decoder. I use these in just about all of my diesel locomotives, except, as I said, for the Alcos, which I use the TCS, because I just love their Alco prime mover sounds. It's the TCS wow sounds just have a great Alco sound. But for the rest, you know, I use a lot of the various economy decoders. Well, that's a wrap for today's video. I hope my impressions, and that's what they are my own personal impressions of these various decoders. I hope they are helpful to you when you're selecting decoders to use on your model railroad. Because to be honest with you, there's some really good ones out there, and there's some old clunkers floating around. So be careful what you buy. think about it. If the price sounds too good to be true on eBay, it probably is. In the meantime, have a great week, have a great weekend, and I'll see you here next week with another video from the DCC Guy. Bye now.